Right, so we have a pretty interesting report that says the 2022 iPad Pros could be gaining 3nm chips. Now, I was pretty confused by this, and so let's delve into the report, but also let me explain why I'm confused. But first, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors, and with that being said, let's just tuck in. Right, so the source of the information is Nikkei Asia Review. Now, these guys have a ton of intel on the supply chain, and so yes, I think we can somewhat trust this information. So essentially, TSMC is apparently working on 3nm chips that could be going into mass production as soon as the second half of 2022, and could also debut with a new iPad instead of a new iPhone. And by the way, in case you're wondering about the benefits of a 3nm processor, it's basically 15% better performance and around 30% reduced power consumption, so those are pretty massive upgrades in my opinion. Now, I do want to say the report does not specifically mention which iPad they're referring to, but I think it's a pretty safe assumption that this will be the next generation iPad Pro, since obviously the regular iPad and the iPad mini won't get flagship chips like this. And as for the iPad Air 5, we know that's releasing in early 2022, and so that's likely to get the A15. And so yes, I do think they're referring to the 2022 iPad Pro, and this could be hinting at a release later in 2022, possibly at some sort of October or November event. Right, so why does this confuse me? Well, obviously one does expect the next generation iPad Pro to come with an M2, since obviously that's after M1, and we know the M2 is based on the A15, which is based on the 5nm plus process, and so this means this 3nm chip they're referring to in this report must be the next generation processor, and so that could mean the 2022 iPad Pros come with the M3 instead of the M2, and now I think you can understand why I'm a little confused. What's even weirder is the fact apparently this 3nm chip is coming to the iPad first instead of the iPhone. Now this goes against what Apple does traditionally, where they release the A series processor first and then of course the iPad chip follows suit. So yeah, it's a pretty puzzling situation, and what makes it even worse is that apparently the iPhones in 2022 will not be using a 3nm chip, it's going to be stuck at 4nm, and so 3nm on the iPhone is not going to be a few months behind, it could be a year behind the iPad, and that just makes no sense to me. And so yes, I don't understand why TSMC and Apple are allegedly doing this. And also I do want to say that surely it's harder to make two different types of transistor sizes together, because right now Apple uses 5nm across all their flagship products, whether it be the M1 or the A14, and so why use 4nm on the iPhone and then use 3nm on the Mac and the iPad? It just makes no sense to me. So yes, I am still very much confused about this report. Really, the only thing that could explain this is COVID, because Apple's having to adapt with the pandemic and the supply shortages, and obviously we saw with the iPad Air, that launched with the A14 first, not the iPhone. That completely goes against the tradition I mentioned before, and so yes, maybe Apple's having to adapt again, and maybe they're being forced to release these 3nm chips with the iPad instead of the iPhone. I mean, the report does say the iPhone is gaining a 4nm processor due to scheduling reasons, and so maybe Apple can't get 3nm production ready in time for the iPhone 13, especially since Apple now starts production for the new iPhones a little earlier than in previous years because of COVID. And so yes, I think that might be the sole reason why things are so fishy. And of course, at the end of the day, I guess this M3 is going to be a Mac chip, and so I can understand why Apple is not pushing for 3nm on the iPhone first, since it is fair to say the Mac would be gaining a lot from the additional performance and the additional efficiency of the 3nm processor, especially for lower-end MacBooks like the MacBook Air. But yes, I know many of you guys might say that all this performance for the iPad is pretty useless, and I do agree, we do need software that could take advantage of the powerful hardware we have right now. So yes, before we get any 3nm chips, I'm hoping for software improvements with the iPad. But let me know in the comments below what's your thoughts on this report. Anyways, thank you for watching, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors. Check out the video in the card above about details regarding the iPhone 13. And on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya, peeps.